Aside. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for your time together. We ask you to bless us and to teach us, to show us what you want us to learn from this, and to take that and show it to the world and bring the people to know you. And hopefully we're close that the day we'll see you face to face is near. We ask your blessings in your name we pray. Amen. Colossians 3, 1-4. Raised with Christ. I'll give her a second to get here.
I didn't think about my...
William Tell Overture.
Okay.
If then you were raised with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ is, sitting at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on things of the earth. For you died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, appears, then you will also appear with him in glory. That's a real important thing that ties into what we're talking about. If we get so focused on the mess that's going on around here, if you get tied up in the politics, you know, my team's winning, my team's losing. I get a letter from my team, we're doing good, we just need $20 more from you to help get to that point. 30 seconds later, ping, we're losing, we need $50. You know, it's all whipped back and forth. We can't do this, we can do that. Oh, they're out to do this. And you know, everybody is living in such a amped up, hyperbolic situation. We've gone through COVID. Okay, COVID is what it is. What you want to believe it is, what medical group you want to believe. Nobody really, I think, knows the truth anymore because there's so much garbage out about what it is, what it was. But what do we know? Very low mortality rate in the first place, not the horror that it wasn't the Black Plague, it wasn't the Spanish flu. But we locked down, and now we have a whole generation of kids who have all kinds of mental issues are starting to come out of this. They can't function with other people. They're afraid of everybody. They're out in the middle of a field with nobody within a mile of them, and you drive by and they've got a mask on. Or like yesterday, we're walking through the store and there's a family, the kids got their masks on, the mom's got the mask on but it's below her nose, and dad's is on his chin. I don't know if he's worried about his beard catching it or what's going on. It looked like that thing you see when you're there at the restaurant and the cook's got a beard. It's like, does anybody really know anymore? Just everybody's afraid of everything.
They've just been brainwashed. I mean, it's like you said, from the get-go they always said, the youngest people were the ones least likely to get it. Like you said, you're just out and about and you see these 25-year-olds, 26-year. You're not going to be any more healthier in your life.
Riding around locked in a car by themselves and they've got a mask on. And you know there's a HEPA filter on the air conditioning that's running. And you're starting to go, what in the world are these people?
Well, you just want to ask them politely, you just want to say, how long are you going to wear that? Are you just going to like wear that for the rest of your life? Are you never going to take it off, or are you waiting? You know, when is the time to take it off? You know, it's like
they're saving it for marriage.
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. All I know is people are so afraid and so amped up because they're focused on what's here. The Bible's telling us we're supposed to look at what's above. We got eternity. If you're a Christian and you think to be absent from the body is to be with God, take me home now. You know, my next house payment's due on the 1st. That'd be a good time to go.
Or any time between that and the 15th.
Exactly. You know, I've talked to people. How would you like to die? How would you like to go? Well, my great uncle died getting his hair cut. He was so calm when he died, the barber kept cutting his hair. He didn't even know he died. He thought he fell asleep. He looked good for the funeral. That must be a good way to die. I've heard people have died in compromising situations. We had an accountant that we would work with who was with somebody who wasn't married to him. And the family got mad and burned everybody's tax files. Not a good way to go. Not a good way to go.
I don't think dying in a bathtub would be a good way, because like if they didn't find you for a while, you know how you always get pruned up.
No, that actually, you really want to know what happens?
It preserves you.
Not really, but no, I think the water preserves you. It's just
No, you develop a thing called skin slip. The connective tissues between the skin and that, so it just kind
it
of,
just kind of falls off.
but that's, no, it just doesn't, when you grab it, it kind of just rotates.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of bizarre.
It's disgusting.
I thought the best way to go would be writing a bad check to the IRS. Just as you're about to sign the check to the IRS, just right then and there would be a good way to go.
No, but if it's going to be a bad check, go ahead and live through that, just as long as you're not around when they cash it.
You know, rapture is the best one. I mean, that would be great. Be in the middle of something and just gone.
Like the
The
guy you
twisting
showed
of
to the ambassador did.
Oh, who was the guy? Not to change that. Who was the guy that got attacked this weekend in New York? The guy that he was a speaker.
That was about a week, more than a week ago now.
Are you sure?
I
thought
think
it was
so.
just this past week. Well, anyway, who was that guy? Because it was. Was he a controversial writer? Because the only thing I heard about it was.
Oh no, that's a different one. Salman Rushdie is the
Yeah.
one. Salman Rushdie has had a fatwa for his death
Right,
for
a
about
while.
40 years. He wrote a book called The Satanic Verses.
Right.
The Satanic Verses is a book based, it's a novel, but it's based on a section of the Quran which was removed that deals with Muhammad's wife, I believe it's Aisha. I could be wrong about that,
Yeah, I know
but
they
it
had
deals with the
price on that
section that they took off.
because they're
But there's
upset.
been a fatwa
Yeah.
to such a point that the man formerly known as Cat Stevens agreed that him being killed was a good idea. He's now, what's his name?
Yusuf something.
Yusuf Islam or something like that. You know, there's just so much weird in the world. That's why God's telling us, look up. God doesn't change. The idea of being raised with Christ was introduced back in Colossians 2:12. Paul used baptism to illustrate the spiritual reality that you come up out of the water. We're supposed to be free of this. We're supposed to occupy. We're supposed to be the light. We're supposed to be the salt. We're supposed to be showing the way to Christ. And too many of us are living in fear or running around going, did you hear what was on the radio? Or if it's on the internet, it must have been real. Did you see what they said? The idea that somebody's sitting in their basement in their underwear typing something creates something that's real. I said something. I have a client who's never met a conspiracy theory he doesn't like. True story. I mean, he's got weird newspapers and he's into all this stuff. And so I floated my little conspiracy thing because he's trying to get his wife back. She's out of the country. But to come back, she has to take a COVID test. But the only COVID test they're currently offering her is the nose swab. And he says, you can't do that. It's a proven fact that there's little curlicue pieces of metal with controls on them that are on these swabs. And so when you stick it up there, it goes near your brain. And they proved that because they took the swabs, they rubbed it on fish, and it cut the fish. I said, I think that's probably true. Because that's what caused the microchip shortage. Because Bill Gates implanted all these microchips in the COVID vaccine. And he had this look of seriousness on his face. And the fact I could keep a straight face and not laugh. But that's my bizarre theory. I thought, if I put it out there, who would believe it? The scary part is somebody would. Stick with the Bible. Because the world is going to tear you from one side to the other. It's beyond it. That's why we have to have Jesus. Because we were raised with Christ, we should act just as Jesus did when he was resurrected. He lived the perfect life. After he was resurrected, Jesus left the tomb, so we should leave. We should get away from our past. We don't need to cling to that. I used to be a so-and-so. I used to be one of these. I used to wear cowboy boots as a kid. It didn't make me a cowboy. But I thought they were cool. For about 2 years, that's the only kind of shoes I wore. I had my cowboy boots.
You have your Daniel Boone hat?
I did have one of
I think
those.
I had one of them too.
And I had a BB
Or
gun.
either that or Davy Crockett. I don't know. Daniel Boone, Davy Crockett, one of them too.
Something like that. After his resurrection, Jesus spent his remaining time with and ministering to his disciples. We should be ministering and helping each other. As we said, a lot of the pastors and leadership and people in the church are feeling isolated. They're afraid to share their Christianity. They're afraid to go out because somebody's going to call them a Bible thumper or something. They're not going to not want to talk to them. And then the other Christians are so whipsawed by the other, they're afraid to talk about what's going on. After his resurrection, Jesus lived in a supernatural power with the ability to do impossible things. We can do impossible things how? Through the Holy Spirit. We can pray for things and change things. if that's God's will. We can ask for the intervention of the Holy Spirit, which can do changes that in people's lives we'd say was absolutely impossible. We watched the testimony of Chris Christopherson on TV. I don't know what we were even watching. We were flipping around on YouTube. And he talked about being at some concert and somebody asked him to go to church. And he'd been to church his whole life. And he said, I'm going to sit there. I'm not going to do anything. And they start telling him to, if you've got, want to know Jesus Christ, raise your hand. And he said, I'm not going to do that. He said he looked and his hand was up. They said, then if you want prayer and all that stuff, you should come down front. And he said, I'm not going down front. And he's down in the aisle. And he says he's sobbing like a baby. And he came out of that and he wrote, Why me, Lord? And it's just the background on this. Miracles happen. Set your thoughts on the things above, on what's going on with Christ. Christ, who is our life, in another place, Paul wrote, for me to live is Christ, in Philippians 1:21. There he showed the idea was not just for special apostles, but for all of us. Christ, who is our life, sometimes we say music is his life, sports is his life, work is his life. How many of us identify, especially men, by their job? I'm a doctor, I'm a machinist, I'm an engineer. I'm a Christian who does math for a living. That's our vocation. That shouldn't be our life. On that day, we'll see all the saints ready, not merely those who appear to be the super saints. The calling, it was the same for Paul as it is for everybody. Paul became a prisoner. He went to Rome. He stood up and he suffered through this. He was called to do that. He could have said, no, I'm not the preacher, Paul. I'm the tent maker guy. I'm Paul the tent maker. Because that's how Paul supported himself. Maybe he could have gotten out of it then. But he didn't. He stood up and he claimed Christ first. Colossians 3:5-7. Therefore put to death your members which are on the earth, fornication, uncleanness, passion, evil desire, covetousness, which is idolatry. Because of these things the wrath of God is coming upon the sons of disobedience, in which you yourselves once walked when you lived in them. Give them up. You're not saving people by being known as the drunk Christian down at the bar. That's not the image that you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to be hanging out in the drug den getting high saying, if you think this is good, God's even better. That's not your calling. We're to put those things aside. It's kind of hard to say you're supposed to live like Christ while you're shacked up with somebody. You need to make these changes in your life. The word used here is necrosate, which literally means to make dead. We hear of the words necro, which is for death. A necropsy is what we would call an autopsy. The surgical procedures of disassembling a dead body to figure out why that person died or what happened to them. Colossians 3:8-9. But now you yourselves are to put off all these things. Anger, that's a tough one. Wrath, well, that's pretty tough. Malice, I don't really hurt people too much anymore. I used to. I remember playing football. That was the thing we were told to do. Go out and hurt somebody. Blasphemy. We do pretty good till I stub a toe. Filthy language out of our mouth. There's another tough one. Do not lie to one another, since you have put off the old man with his deeds. Will we still do these things? Yes, we'll still do them. They're still sins. But we're to put them off. That's not what we're supposed to be known as. We're not supposed to be known as the liar, the crazy angry person, the wrathful. It always gets me when they talk about the fire and brimstone guys, the guys that teach that I have to beat you to a pulp to bring you down to such a low position that the only way you can see up is Christ. Christ meets you where you are. I don't have to destroy you. I don't have to drive you to a point that you finally feel that there's no reason for living, and then I give you a reason for going to heaven. Christ is here. Christ is where you are.
Where's the verse that says, don't lie to yourself?
You know? It's kind of throughout. You know what the worst part about lying to yourself is? I mean, besides the fact that you know you're lying and you're stupid enough to believe it, even when you know it's a lie. You're able to convince yourself that it's okay, this rationalization. I can get away with just this. I was working in a tax office and one of the elders from the church came in and the company had paid him $50,000 that year but didn't give him a 1099 and he wanted to know if he had to report it.
Of course not.
Well,
Just because a piece of paper said you got it, I mean you have to report it.
exactly. There's no paper. And the CPA is sitting there saying, well, it's not there, the IRS doesn't know about it. But you know about it. You know that's a problem.
Plus, if it's deposited into your bank, they're going to know about it.
It's going to get found, especially that large of an amount. This is the same man that we rode to Harvest with. And he had bought his brand new Chevy Caprice, his big fancy Chevy Caprice. And he's driving 85 miles an hour and he says, I should get more, special treatment because I pay more in road taxes because my car's more expensive. You what? You justify it this way? That's the golden rule. What is the golden rule?
One with the golden rules.
The one who has the gold makes the rules. That's the way people see it. That's situational ethics. Not do unto others you'd have them do unto yourself. You know, people have really, really twisted. Paul calls believers to a deeper obedience. He tells us to bridle our tongue. James 1:26 and again in James 3 verses 1 through 9. The tongue, little tiny part of the body. Do you know it's the strongest muscle in your body? Like a small rudder on a big ship, it can turn you anywhere. It can take you in places you don't want to go. I always love the one-upmanship. You know, well, I did this. Well, I did that. Well, I did this. Great. You know, I think back about the time I was so brave, I pet a rattlesnake on the nose. There's pictures out there somewhere of me petting a rattlesnake. As an adult, I said, what a stupid kid he was. Somebody was holding on to it. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't walk up to a rattlesnake and pet it. Somebody had a hold of this thing. It wasn't going to bite me. I was only a little stupid, but even now I look back and say that little stupid was too much stupid. You put off the old man. The more notorious sins of Colossians 3:5 are easily seen as incompatible. But so are the lesser sins. We always, like I said, we like to draw the line of what sins are acceptable in our life. The little white lie, the lying to the IRS, the cheating on that. Have you ever gotten too much change back at a restaurant or at a store and try and give them the money back? They look at you like you're crazy. The cashier, it's not really their money and they think you're nuts for giving it back. But that's what we're called to do. We're supposed to do this stuff, and that's the point of measurements. You know, we all can do the good stuff out in front of people when we have an audience. But what do you do when it's quiet, when nobody's around? I worked retail. We used to put $20 bills in the registers and leave them in there before the money came out, just to see if we were suspicious of a cashier, to see if they would take it. It was a little bit of an entrapment thing, kind of. We put it there. We didn't, trick them or say, it's yours to take. We just would see if they would. We just find out, there was all kinds of tests. 90% of the theft in the stores back in the day were done by employees. Those were the bigger thieves. In Colossians 3:5 through 9, Paul showed two high priorities in living. Sexual morality was connected with the right attitude. But all the sins are sins. It's not just the big sins. We don't get to do that. What we're called to do in Colossians 3:10 and 11 is to put on the new self and have put on the new man who is renewed in knowledge according to the image of him who created him, where there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcised nor uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, nor free, but Christ is all and in all. The new man. This is us changing. This is putting on the image of Christ, living the best that we can, knowing we're still going to fail until such time as we're resurrected, but we're doing the best that we can. We're renewed in the knowledge that Christ has given us. The image here, Paul is alluding to Genesis 1:27, where it said that God created Adam in his own image. Nevertheless, now that the first Adam is regarded as the old man, who should be put off and discarded, because we're now created in the image of the second Adam, Jesus Christ. And it gets to all these different things. Neither Greek nor Jew. A Greek is somebody who is not a Jew. Everybody who wasn't a Jew was a Greek. Circumcised, non-circumcised. Barbarian, Scythian, or slave, nor free. New man is part of this. The Scythians got picked on because they were extreme barbarians, which is kind of weird.
I think in today's world you should change the word new man to renewed man.
There you go.
Because you don't want to know what the new man is in today's terms.
You know, I got a business card from a lawyer the other day. It's the first one I've ever gotten like this. It has his preferred pronouns on it. I couldn't believe it.
Was it?
No, it was a he, him.
Not a hee-haw?
You know, I thought about that, and somebody said, well, what pronouns are you going to go with? And I started thinking of what pronouns could get me benefits. And I've got it figured out. I'm going to take the royal we, like as in we're not amused, so I can drive in the diamond lane. I'm a we. There's multiple of us here. Maybe I can get in the diamond lane when I'm by myself and save some traffic. Have we lost our minds? God doesn't change. The Bible doesn't change. But man, given about 30 seconds, will come up with something totally different. All the barriers existed in the ancient Roman world, and the power of God through the gospel of Jesus Christ broke them all. He broke down everything. When Jesus dies, the veil is torn, between the Holy of Holies and the regular part of the temple. We think, okay, somebody tore a curtain. Think you can tear those curtains? They're pretty thick. The description of the curtain that separated the Holy of Holies was a 4-inch thick piece of fabric. And it was torn from the top down. Not only would you have to tear something that's 4 inches thick, you'd have to be able to get up to the top and start there. It came from above. It was a power that we don't have. Therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering, bearing with one another, forgiving of one another. If anyone has a complaint against another, even as Christ forgave you, so also must do. You must also do. But above all these things, put on love, which is the bond of perfection, and let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to which also you were called in one body, and be thankful. Let the wisdom of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord. And whatever you do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. That's verses 12 through 17. That's a tough one. It's easy to love your spouse most of the time. It's easy to love your kids most of the time. That's the easy stuff. You can actually be pretty fond of your relatives, some of your neighbors. But you're supposed to be kind and loving and forgiving for everybody. Your enemies. The guy across the street with the loud stereo and the noise at 3 o'clock in the morning and the barking and the this and the that. And the one who's in your parking space and the one who's doing all these things that you seem to think is intentional. You ever notice that? That's how your mind works. Somebody comes in and takes your parking space. Say you're living in a compound, like an apartment complex or a condominium thing, and somebody takes your parking space. They didn't just take the first available parking space they found. That's not what you think. They took mine. It was an attack on me. It's always a personal offense. What did Jesus say about any offenses that we take for Christianity? It's because of him, not because of us. We don't get to take them personal. That's how we're supposed to look at these things. We're supposed to be forgiving and understanding. Easy to do? Nope. Not at all.
Almost impossible.
Without Christ, not almost. Definitely impossible. You know, I've seen people park cars behind other people just to punish them for taking their spot. People that park in 2 or 3 parking spaces. We've seen them pack shopping carts around
The
them.
worst one, the guy has a new vehicle and they'll park crossways so we can't park next to him.
Take up to,
Well, when I had my first Corvette, when I was young and I got my car, it was the weirdest thing. I would park at work. I'd go as far out away from everybody. I'd park there being nobody there. I would come out and I'd be surrounded by Corvettes. Because they were all afraid of other people too, so they figured if we huddle together, maybe there's safety in mass and in the number. It was the strangest thing to me that...
Well, plus I knew it was a Corvette and we weren't going to bang the car next to you.
Exactly. And it was really strange. I had a client that used to come in, her husband bought her a Ferrari for her 40th birthday. And being a guy that wanted a Ferrari at that age, you know, I asked him, what does he do for a living? He works for Rockwell. What does he do? I don't know. He's not allowed to tell me. Okay, so he's top secret. So I said, well, where is he? He's sitting in the car to make sure nobody hits it. They drove to the store, she would go shopping, and he would sit in the car and guard the car.
amazing.
That was his job, was to be the guard dog for the car. We knew somebody that had a Rolls Royce, and they got rid of it because people would purposely throw drinks on it or spit on it or try to, because they were jealous of it. You know what? It's a thing. You don't get to take it with you. The rapture's not going to see a bunch of cars and stuff floating up to heaven. I mean, there's not going to be flying Ferraris. You know, they lied to me. We're supposed to have flying cars by now. You're not going to have flying cars on the
It's
rapture.
bad enough the people left behind are going to see the people going up. If they saw cars and all that stuff going up too, they'd really freak.
They'd be mad because they'd be losing value. Take my husband, but leave the checkbook. I mean, I'm sorry. There's craziness in this stuff.
I think they keyed our car because of the, what we have on the sticker on the back.
What's your sticker?
The one was not to vote for the
Oh,
gay, that's been on there a long time.
We got surrounded by a bunch of people on the vote, you know, to make English the official language. So here's your trivia question, Mary. You can't answer because you heard the answer. What country south of Canada has the official language of English? See if you can get this
South
one.
of Canada.
Canada is both English and French. They have stated official languages.
It's got to be a trick question, so it's got to be Mexico.
No?
No?
Any guesses? Beyond it? Belize.
Oh,
Belize used to be British Honduras. And as such, their official language is English. Not American, but English. It's kind of a weird
It's a
thing.
trick question because I don't even know where Belize. I've heard of Belize, but I don't know where it's.
Belize is this beautiful little country in
It's
Central
little island.
America.
Okay.
It's on the coast. It's so beautiful. Every hurricane goes there before it hits the United States. Comes across from Africa, goes and destroys Belize, and then goes to Florida or Texas. I don't know why. But it
Why
is,
is it people want to go live on Belize? They say it's so pretty, but if it gets hit by a hurricane all the time, it's like.
I don't know. It
So
also has
your
a.
insurance must be outrageous to rebuild your house, your homeowner's insurance.
I don't know what kind of housing they have there. They also have a lot of Amish, and I don't know why. But it's an
Poor
interesting
people.
place.
Huh?
a lot of poor people.
So we can say humility, which was not considered a virtue among the ancient Greeks. I got news for you. It's not considered a virtue among the current Greeks. I've met my Greek cousins. Arrogance is a better word for that culture. If you don't live in the city, you're, up with the goats and the sheep, and they're very, very, which is why we don't get to go see the relatives. We can go to Greece, we just can't go see the relatives, because some of them are downright offensive.
Sometimes sheep and goats can be your best friend.
That's the
Very
implication.
Yeah.
That is the implication. I don't. Yes. So forgiving one another. If anyone has a complaint against another, even as Christ forgave you, you must also do. We're told to live forgiving one another after the pattern of Jesus' forgiveness towards us. Understand the way Jesus forgave us along the way also makes us more generous and forgiving. So when you think of how Christ forgave you, it should make us more generous and forgiving. Look at the examples. God holds back his anger a very long time when we sin against him. He bears with us a long time even when we're sorely provoking him. Do we deserve to be punished for what we've done? Yes. But he waits. He holds back. God reaches out to bad people to bring forgiveness to them. The habit of man is to not reconcile if the offended person is a person of bad character. Jesus hung out with who? The prostitutes, the alcoholics, the tax people, you name it, he went to them.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you please say
Yeah,
that
could you
again?
please say that again?
I don't think so. Sorry, Siri.
How it comes up. And
It's funny, I once had a problem. I was trying to do something with Siri, and I said, Siri, what's wrong with you? Let me check. I'm fine. So, that's a weird thing. God makes the first move towards us in forgiveness. The habit of man is to only be reconciled if the offending party craves forgiveness and makes the first move. God meets us where we are. We don't have to clean ourselves up for us to become Christians. God will take us where we are and go from there. You need longer on this?
Yeah, one more. The last one.
So in the second one, it says, God reaches out to bad people to bring forgiveness to them. And it says, the habit of man is not to reconcile if the offending person is a person of bad character. So my first thought is like Newscomb.
You'd have a hard time with that one, huh?
Yeah.
You'd have a hard time with that.
Well, the first
I'll
part,
take the crack person down here, and I'll take the killer over there, but the politician, he's out. We're all going to draw a line who's going to be good and who's not going to be
well, I'm
good.
just saying it says God reaches out to
Okay.
bad people to bring forgiveness to him.
He does.
When he brings, does that mean he's reaching out to the
To
bad kids?
everybody. He doesn't care. If you've got bad character, according
No
to...
Bad upbringing?
who was the radio psychologist used to be here in Pomona? I'm going to go Dr. Dobson. Dobson met with, who was the, Ted Bundy.
Newsom's worse.
And supposedly Ted Bundy accepted Christ. I don't know, this is what Dobson claims, and that he changed his way. Does everybody know who Ted Bundy was? Ted Bundy was a monster. Jesus made the effort to reach out to him. We'd let him go. How many of you scheduled an appointment to go see Charles Manson to try and convert him? Most people didn't think that that was worth even the effort. However, if he accepted Jesus Christ before he died, he'll be in heaven. And a lot of people have a problem with that somebody that can be that horrible can accept Jesus Christ and become saved. They don't want to believe that. They want to believe there's a degree of sinning that prohibits. What's the problem with that thought? That limits the power of God. God can only clean you up this much. If you go one step beyond that, God doesn't have the power.
I think the problem with Manson is most people thought he was insane, so that's the point, you couldn't reach him. Whereas Ted Bundy, the people around Ted Bundy, like his neighbors probably thought he was a great guy because he did everything in secret. So he was probably your best neighbor, but behind the scenes,
God's reaching your heart, not your brain.
But
I'm
Charles
just saying from the outward
Manson,
appearance.
Right, from outward
Like-
appearance, nobody could be saved.
but yet Dennis Wilson from the Beach Boys let Charles Manson use his Rolls Royce to ride around in because they were friends. Apparently a very charismatic person. I knew somebody from high school whose father worked in the prison system who had met Charles Manson in jail. And a very charismatic person. A person who could be likable. I had a teacher who worked with Jim Jones. Very charismatic, very likable. Likable enough that he could convince you to drink poison. So, that's kind of a strange thing. God goes even further. He forgives often knowing that we'll sin again. There you go. As a Christian, you're going to sin again. Sometimes in the exact same way you did before. It is the habit of man to only forgive it if the person says, I'll never do that again. You know what's saying never going to do that again? You may as well hit the stopwatch and figure out how long it's going to take you before you do it again.
30 seconds.
Exactly. I'm never going to do that. I'm going on a diet. How long does a diet last? I'm not going to eat that stuff. Wonder what's in the refrigerator. If I can't eat that thing, I'm going to find me something else. God's forgiveness is so complete and glorious, He grants adoption to those former offenders. We are sons and daughters of Jesus Christ. We are not outsiders. We're not stepkids. We're not anything that we're fully adopted in. God paid the price for the people who are against Him. It's easy to do stuff for people you like and who are on your side. You know, your kid comes along and says, I want an ice cream. It's okay if you got a dollar in there. But the hoodlum down the street says, I'm thirsty, can I get a Coke? How many of us are popping open our wallet for that? It's amazing. Like you said, we were down in Carlsbad, and there was obviously a homeless man who was not all there. And I think blind in at least one eye and not very good vision in the other. And I went into a Taco Bell. We were getting stuff for the dogs and for us, and he's counting out his pennies, his whatever he's got from his aluminum and all that stuff. And his meal came to $7 and some cents or $8, and that he's trying to get it all out. So I told her, I said, I need 2 large drinks. Just put his on my bill. And she's like, why are you doing that? Because it's the right thing to do. I had the money. He obviously needed some help. He wasn't going to be able to go out and sell his tacos to get alcohol or drugs. And even if he did, that wasn't the reason I gave it to him, was so he could afford to go out and buy drugs with the rest of it. And even if I thought he might, again, we do it, and that's what God does. He saves you knowing that you're going to sin again, that you're going to go against Him. God keeps reaching out to the man for reconciliation, even when you refuse. How many times did you hear before you accepted? God doesn't have a probationary period. Okay, you're a maybe Christian. You got to live 2 years doing this, and that. Poor guy on the cross was lied to. You're not going to be in paradise with me because you didn't get your full time in probation. With that thought, we can throw purgatory out right here and now. God's forgiveness offers complete restoration and honor. Once having forgiven, God puts His trust in us and invites us back wholly. As a Christian, you're not the former drug addict. You're not the former alcoholic, not the former thief or whatever. You're a Christian. That's how you're seen on this stuff. Even though God knows there's a chance you'll go back and do those things again. And He already knows which ones you're going to do and when you're going to do them. We're called to put on love. That's the bond of everything. To care for the people that may not care for you, to dwell in these things. We're told if we can't forgive and do these things and reach out and get beyond it, God may not do it for us. Isn't that the reference that we see in the Bible? If we're unwilling to forgive, if much is forgiven of us and we can't forgive anybody else, we could be held accountable for that. We're going to get into thank God at least the men in the room outnumber the women. Wives, submit to your husband as fitting in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and do not be bitter towards them. So what does that tell us? It's not a thing that people take on that they really want to do. A lot of people don't want to be submissive. But in this word, it's borrowed from a military term. It's, in other words, a rank and position. Head of the household, second person. But it's also a position that's taken on voluntarily. In the military, it's not uncommon to find a private that's smarter than a general. He's just not in that position. He doesn't have the authority. You submit to these things, you take these things, and you do these things. The idea of submission doesn't have anything to do with somebody being smarter, better, or more talented. The equality of men and women before the Lord is what Paul wrote about in Galatians 3:28. It's not been retracted. This is more a function of how the organization will work. It's to prevent chaos. It's to assign things in a way that'll work. Submission means that you're part of the team. The form of the verb is, okay, let's learn some Greek here again. Hypotastithi, middle voice. Greek has a high voice, a middle voice, a low voice, a masculine, a feminine, a neuter. You know, I'm, thank God, as weird as English is, that we don't have all that stuff. I remember when I sat down and I took my first Spanish class, a feminine and masculine. Okay, that made sense to me when I was talking about a rooster and a chicken. I knew which one was masculine. But how is a pen masculine and a pencil feminine? I mean, when I took French, la table, the table, le crayon, one is masculine, one's feminine. And I think they're backwards from what I thought they would have been. And then you get to German, it's neuter. It's so strange in some of the languages. If you're going down the road and you get pulled over on the Autobahn for doing something wrong by the police officer, there are two German words for the word you. There's du, D-U, and there's sie, S-I-E. The formal proper is sie. Du is the common. You can get a ticket for calling the officer by the du, unless he's a personal friend of yours, you're not respecting the position and you can be ticketed for that. I'd be in a lot of trouble. And I don't know how their language is going to survive this he, she, they, way, what, where, when, and how thing. It's just nuts. You know, it's time for some people to go back to sleep and not be woke. Because I don't get it. Wives, submit to your own husbands. That narrows the sphere of what it is. It's the order within the house, in the family. It doesn't deal with politics or business or education. And for the men, as fitting it to the Lord, do not be bitter with them. You're put in a position, and you are supposed to act as Jesus acts towards us. Forgiving of all sins, understanding, knowing that there's this, that, and the other that's going to happen. It's not a, ha ha, I'm the man. I get to come in. I'm the master of my own house. We had a friend who married this woman, and he thought he knew exactly how it was going to be. They got their first house together. He was an ex-gang member out of Compton. He married this Chinese woman. So in his mind, he was going to come home. She was going to be cooking dinner. He was going to kick his shoes off. He was going to sit on the couch, turn on the TV, and wait for the
beer.
You know what he found when he got home to his 3-bedroom house? There was a family living in the master bedroom. She had rented that one out. The biggest room was rented to a couple that didn't have children, and him and his wife lived in the smallest room. The house was already paying for itself. That woman was about money. Money is what was important, and that's how they lived, and they put together a nice nest egg. But the problem was that was their only focus. He found God through the church that was there, and I truly believe he was a Christian. She put money up there, so I kind of, the whole mammon thing. Was she chasing money? Did she find God? I'm not 100% certain. She's now changed over the years. Now she's gotten older. She seems to have come back. But there was a time I would have said, no, money's her God. Money's what was the thing. Don't get me wrong, she's still into money. The problem is her kids are still into money. So what is all this, what is fitting, as in the Lord means? For wives, submission to their husband is part of their Christian life. The command to submit is completely out of the realm of my nature or personality. Wives aren't expected to submit because they're submissive types. They're expected to submit because it fits into the plan of the Lord, of this order, the sense of how things can operate. When the husband asks the wife to sin, she doesn't have to do that. There are exceptions to these commands. When the husband's mentally incapacitated, insane, or under the influence of mind-altering substances, she doesn't have to submit to that. When he is violent or physically threatening, there's no call to that. Or when he breaks the bond of marriage through adultery. There are exceptions to this. It's not, hey, once you put the ring on, it's not like you put the clamps on the legs, the shackles, the chains, the handcuffs. Don't you be taking pictures of this. I don't want this thrown back in my face. Will change quickly. It is a love that loves without changing. The word is agapo. It's a self-giving love that means giving without demanding or expecting repayment. A love so great it can be given to the unlovable or the unappealing. It is a love that loves even when it's rejected. Think about that. Jesus came knowing he was going to be rejected. Agape love gives and loves because it wants to, not because it expects repayment. It gives because it loves. It does not love in order to receive. If you're thinking about giving out love or that with an expectation, you're setting yourself up for a huge, huge disappointment. Here's one we can get away with because none of the kids are in the room. Children, obey your parents in everything, for this pleases the Lord. Fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged. We can't abuse the people in the relationships. Those that are in the leadership position are called to a higher requirement. We don't beat on the children. The children are supposed to be learning. What are we told to do? Train up our children in the way of the Lord. So when they're older, they will not depart from it. We're not supposed to teach them how to be a better drug dealer, how to be a better alcoholic, how to cheat on your taxes, how to get away with stuff. That's not the teaching that we're supposed to provide. Colossians 3:22 through 4:1. We actually have to go into Colossians 4 because I don't know if anybody thinks about this, but the Bible that they had, the scriptures that they had, didn't have verses and chapters marked off. This is something that we've put in to make it easier to find things and points of reference. This is an organizational thing that didn't exist at the time. So the first verse of what would be chapter 4 actually ties into this. And it's, bondservants, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service as men pleasers, but in sincerity of heart, fearing God, and whatever you do, do it heartily, as to the Lord and not to men, knowing that from the Lord you will receive the reward of the inheritance, for you serve the Lord Christ. But he who does wrong will be repaid for what he has done, and there is no partiality. Masters, give your bondservants what is just and fair, knowing that you also have a master in heaven. Well, that sure isn't working out in the marketplace today now, is it? You know, I don't want to work. I'm entitled to this stuff. I see all these people out there. Well, there's not a shortage of workers. There's not a shortage of teachers. They just need more money and more respect. I saw something that said that higher wages doesn't contribute to inflation. I got news for you. If you're paying a guy $25 an hour to put the little McDonald's burger in the bag with a small fry, a milk, and a toy, that Happy Meal is going to have a price that's kind of unhappy. Because he can't put enough of those together to make it where you can still buy it for $3. Remember, you used to pull up to Del Taco or one of these places. The under a buck thing. It's under $1.50 now. 20 items under $1.50. Oh, we've changed it.
I think there were about 6 items under a buck.
Now, it was real creative. Under President Nixon, we had price controls. Does everybody remember that?
Yeah.
This cut of steak or this cut of meat could only be $2 a pound. we'll call it the New Jersey cut. Only 200 pounds. But if we reshape it a little bit, now it's a New York steak and it's $9 a pound. All we had to do was change what we called it.
Right.
All we had to do was change and make it what it was. We need to pay higher wages at McDonald's. Now you got robots. You walk up, you push, bing, 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 order, stick your money in, and somebody hands it to you. We can afford to pay 25 bucks an hour for the guy that just hand out the bags. They don't have to spend any time with you. They don't have to talk to you. They don't have to take your order, take your money, know how to count back change. Just, okay, it went through, here's your bag. Here's your bag. I mean, it's almost like, Ingval, here's your sign. Here's your sign.
Little sisters, you don't even need to talk to the guy. You can order your pizza. It's in the
They got a little drawer.
Yeah, they got the drawer. You just
That's
pick your
kinda-
pizza up, and
that's
you
kinda
don't even have to
cool.
interact with the guy.
All these warm little drawers, you pop it open, it's like a post office box, and there's your pizza, you slide it out. No wonder people can't talk to each other anymore. Ding, I got a message. I can text back. I didn't know what you are.
I
I can
think that's
say
why they
things.
invented FaceTime, is to get the people that were so afraid of meeting face to face. Well, we got to break them into actually talking to somebody instead of just answering a text.
We've lost it. Well, the worst part is not even that we lost it, we willingly gave it away. Freedoms and choices, people that can't interact. No wonder people are hurting each other and nobody can keep a family together. Nobody knows what a family is anymore. How can you tell a family? Their face masks match. They all got on the same pattern. I don't know. People have lost their minds. They've given up on each other. They're so worried about doing these things. It's frightening to see how much people have given up. I remember, people saying, "Oh, it's changing." And I remember since 1980, it just seems like somebody stepped on the gas. The changes are coming so much faster. Things that you would have said, "Oh, there's no way in the world that'll ever happen." Well, that never happened thing has changed 3 times since then. You don't know what you are anymore. Some of this woke stuff is really kind of interesting, what people are willing to talk about. I'm gender fluid. I'm this, I'm that. I can be what I feel. You know what?
I like the non-binary. I like that.
You know what?
They don't even know what binary means.
Yeah, I come back to think, okay, I can identify as, I want to identify as a 20-year-old God with a lot of money. My checking account's still empty. I look in the mirror, I sure don't look 20, and I sure don't have this body of some kind of athlete. The mirror is not lying to me like it's supposed to. It's not friendly to my woke opinion of myself. I can't look in the thing and see the truth. My truth. We saw the changes. It used to be, black was black, white was white, you mixed them together, you got shades of gray, right? That's how that worked. Blue was blue. Not anymore. I don't think it's blue, I think it's yellow. I think you're wrong. Prove to me, what is blue? Does anybody know what blue is? It's actually that reflection of color in a particular wave band. That was what the definition of blue was. You bounce light and you find that wave band, and that's what blue is. Poor puppy dog. There's another sphere of God's order and authority. Employees have a rule. You go in and you take a job, it's a contract. The boss says, "I need you to do this, and I'll pay you $25 an hour." And you say, "I'll do that for $25 an hour." You want me to do more? That wasn't part of the contract. I want $26 an hour. And the boss can say yes or no. Or the boss can say, "I want you to do this extra work." And you can say no. I had a situation here recently. One of our clients was supposed to do inventory a couple weeks ago. And the company was supposed to send in, he's an independent distributor, was supposed to send in the tags to do the inventory and put it on the stuff. Well, the day before the inventory, the company calls and tells them that they won't have the tags. Well, if you've ever worked inventory, everybody's called to work. Well, 24 hours, it's changed. So they were all supposed to get like 3 hours, 4 hours of overtime. So now they're not going to have to work those hours. But California law says you have to pay them. Because you asked them to do it and they agreed to do it, even though they didn't do it. You still have to pay them for this stuff. And I'm thinking about it. So I called up the state. I called the Department of Industrial Relations. I called this. I said, this is what's happened. This is what's going on. You have to pay. And being the nice, controlling person that doesn't have bad things coming out, I said, that makes you a communist. I said, are you kidding me? She said, I don't agree either, but that's the law. We've lost our minds. What did the Bible say? They'll call evil good and good evil. Not that paying a wage is an evil thing, but things that make sense, that are logical, that fit, don't apply anymore.
The big one was, mathematics is racist.
Everything's racist.
1 and 1 doesn't equal 2 now. The new math.
Do you want to know that that's one of the hardest classes you can take in math? It's a class called linear equations, and you actually have to prove that 1 equals 1. It's not easy to do mathematically. It can be done, but it's a full couple pages of a proof to make it, but we throw that out. Our son was going, we had done the initial homeschool thing through the Rancho Cucamonga school system. And he made it to, he was supposed to start the 2nd grade. And we decided, because of what Mary was doing, we'd put him in public school for a year. And they put him a year ahead, 3rd grade. He did 3rd grade at 7 years old. And then they were going to transfer him to this school right over here. And we went and talked to what was supposed to be his 4th grade teacher. What does he need to know before he gets in so he's where he's supposed to be? Does he have to have his times tables memorized? Oh no, he doesn't need to memorize all stuff. The way we teach it is we'll teach him the process. We'll encourage him, we'll reward him for the process. Eventually he will learn that 3 times 4 is 12. I looked at her and says, you don't believe that? Oh yes we do. I said, I can prove you don't believe it. She said, really? I said, do you own a house? Yes. What's it worth? What a number, $200,000. I said, tell you what, I'll get my checkbook. I'll write you a check for $200,000 and give it to you, and you sign the house over to me. Understand that every month, for years, the bank has been sending me my balance program. I'm supposed to take the money here, write in the checks that haven't come in and subtract that. Add the deposits that aren't there, and my checkbook's supposed to balance. I don't know if there's $200,000 in there. I've been doing the process for years, and you'll trust me with the process. Just sign the house over to me, and we'll believe there's $200,000 there. She said, that's not what I mean. I said, that's exactly what it is. You can't trust the process. You have to learn what it is. I said, you get in your car, you start it up, and you drive down the road, and you push on the brakes, knowing that a man that knew math or a woman that knew math engineered the right size brake pads, the right size things so the tires would stay on the car, that the car would stop. You can't throw these things out. But does that give us an excuse as a worker to be a sloppy and a lazy worker? Nope. Clay's going to love this picture.
Oh yeah.
Christian worker warning. But he who has done wrong will be repaid for what he's done wrong. The Christian doesn't get to hide behind Christianity to be lazy, to be a thief, and to do things wrong. A lot of business people will put the little Christian fish on their business card and lie, cheat, and steal from other Christians. We refer to that as bait. Take the hook. That's called an affinity scam, when you use a common thing with another person to steal from them, to cheat them. Who remembers the name Bernie Madoff? That's a funny name. He made off with a lot of money, right? Who did Bernie Madoff cheat predominantly? Other Jews.
That's right.
He didn't go out and go to the people that wouldn't trust him. You know, that man's a Jew. I'm not going to trust him. He went to the other Jews and said, he's one of us.
Yeah.
He won't cheat us.
He didn't like that.
You fish where the fish are. Why do you think the church watches the people that deal with the children so much? Or deal with the youth? Because where can you find them? Where can you find the innocent ones? The wolf in sheep's clothing. You go where it's easy to fish. The term shooting fish in a barrel, because they're all right there. You'll take advantage of them. I'll claim to be, I'm your spiritual brother. Trust me on this. Well, if you want me to trust you, you can go ahead and sign the contract. We don't need a contract. You and I, we're together on this. No. If you're a man of your word or a woman of what you say you are, you've got no problem signing the agreement. You have no problem being held to the legal standard. If you're trying to hide that way, that's a problem. God is fair and just always. Is it any more powerful than a command for masters to be kind to the slaves in that? We're supposed to treat them fair. We're supposed to be... A lot of people took this section of the Bible and used it to say that Christianity supports slavery. No, slavery existed. Christianity came and said, you need to treat them right. I'm talking over too much. I see that. We're watching that clock. I'm going off on these things. We're supposed to be fair. We're supposed to treat people right. Whenever you do work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, we do it for God. I agree to go to work for it, $12 an hour. I'm going to work as hard as I can for that $12 an hour. We're supposed to treat people fairly, and that's where we end. Christianity didn't come in to say, we're going to show you how to beat up on your slaves or approve slavery. But in time of slavery, we're going to require that you treat them fair and right until such time you can't do it. Slavery ended because of the actions of the Christians. That's where it came from. God uses that to teach us as an employer and employee that we're supposed to be fair. As a husband, we're to be fair to our wives. For the wives, we're to do our jobs also. Everybody has a part and a role to play, and we're supposed to do it in a way that honors God. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for this time. We ask your blessings upon us and be with us and guide us. To show us to reach out and to stand out by being that person. When people look at you and you're different, the reason they should know you're different is because you're honoring God. That's what we ask, and we ask you to bless us in your name we pray. Amen.